Are Chinese electric vehicles any good? From a consumer perspective, they are quite impressive. If brands like Xiaomi or NIO launch their EVs in North America and you are not concerned about the potential surveillance by the Chinese Communist Party, feel free to buy one. They offer great value for money. But that doesn't mean Chinese electric vehicles are guaranteed to have a bright future. A great product doesn't guarantee that its manufacturer will succeed. Why is that? Hi, I'm Dongshan. Welcome to Dig Into China, where we take a deeper look at China to reveal insights you can rarely find anywhere else. In this episode, I'll dive into the topic of Chinese electric vehicles. First of all, Chinese electric vehicles currently hold a significant market share. When it comes to sales, they've clearly pulled far ahead. In September this year, global electric vehicle sales reached 1.7 million, with Chinese-made EVs accounting for 1.1 million, an impressive 65% share. A major reason for this is that most electric vehicle buyers are currently in China, which contributed 58% of global EV sales that month. China has now become the world's largest electric vehicle consumer market by far. Beyond dominating in vehicle manufacturing, China also leads in related industries. In the battery sector, CATL and BYD together control over half of the global market. It might seem that China's electric vehicle industry is on track for a bright future. A strong product paired with high market share should suggest great potential, right? However, the reality may not be so straightforward. First, let's take a closer look at the companies. While Chinese electric vehicle sales are impressive, these automakers are grappling with a significant issue: very low profitability. A recent survey shows that the total profits of all automakers in the first half of this year were less than Volkswagen's alone and only half of Toyota's. This puts tremendous pressure on these companies to stay afloat. The low profitability isn't due to weak sales. BYD, for instance, sold 420,000 vehicles in September. While that's still behind Toyota's monthly sales of about 1 million, the gap isn't huge. On a macro level, China's automotive industry represents 31% of global production and sales, but captures only 9% of the profits. This disparity arises from the very low profit margin per vehicle, which is why many companies are struggling to generate substantial profits. BYD's financial report for the first half of 2024 reveals that its profit per vehicle stands at just 8,500 yuan, whereas Toyota's profit per vehicle during the same period is 21,000 yuan. Furthermore, Toyota's advantage is not limited to BYD. It far exceeds the profits of all Chinese automotive companies combined. According to financial reports from various automotive companies, only 2 Chinese automakers currently report a profit per vehicle exceeding 10,000 yuan. As shown in this chart, the companies listed here have performed relatively well, but there are others with much poorer results. For example, XPeng Motors is facing a loss of 53,000 yuan per vehicle, while Xiaomi Auto reports a loss of 60,000 yuan per vehicle. Blue Park's loss per vehicle has reached 90,000 yuan. The most shocking figure belongs to NIO, with an incredible loss of 175,000 yuan per vehicle. Consider this: are Chinese electric vehicles truly cost-effective? A manufacturer is willing to sell a car at a loss of 175,000 yuan. If you don't mind the potential surveillance from the Chinese Communist Party, go ahead and buy one. However, this creates a dilemma for Chinese automakers. If they can't or won't continue to operate at such losses, can China maintain its edge in the EV market? For example, a NIO ET5 is priced at 300,000 yuan, which is appealing to consumers. But if you account for the losses, that ET5 would need to be sold for 500,000 yuan, making it far less attractive and likely unsellable. Chinese automakers can maintain such narrow profit margins mainly due to government subsidies. Previous reports from Bloomberg indicate that the BYD has received at least 3.4 billion euros in direct subsidies from China, an amount that is roughly equal to the company's net profit for 2023. However, how long can these subsidies continue? Local governments are already financially strained, and the central government is running low on funds as well. If these subsidies were to cease, would it lead to widespread bankruptcies among Chinese automakers? Currently, even with the subsidies still in place, companies like NIO and XPeng are already teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. Whenever the topic of losses among Chinese electric vehicle companies arises, some people respond with the argument of market acquisition. It's true that many companies initially operated at a loss to capture market share. For instance, in its early days, Didi Chuxing incurred losses while striving for dominance, as did various food delivery platforms that relied heavily on subsidies to attract users and achieve economies of scale for future profitability. Similarly, companies like ChatGPT required significant R&D investments upfront to establish technological barriers and ultimately create monopolies for profit. These firms faced losses in the beginning, but as long as they could turn those losses into market share, profitability would come in due time. As a result, many people try to apply the business model of these companies to Chinese electric vehicle sector. However, regardless of how much these companies incur losses or how they exchange losses for market share, there is one crucial prerequisite: a sufficiently large market that ensures those initial losses can be recouped later on. However, the future of the Chinese electric vehicle market is not as bright as we might hope, given the combined pressures of politics and demand. First, regarding the domestic market, while electric vehicle sales have seen recent growth, total car sales in China are stagnating and even declining. Despite the recent introduction of a new round of automotive subsidies, the lack of disposable income resulting from the economic downturn has hindered any significant rise in car sales, which have even begun to drop. In September of this year, car sales saw a year-on-year decline of 2%, continuing a downward trend that began in May. Currently, total car sales in China have experienced a decline for 5 consecutive months. On the other hand, electric vehicles have achieved a high penetration rate. In September, electric vehicle sales comprised nearly 50% of new car sales, and the cumulative sales for the first half of the year reached close to 40%. This raises an important question. Even if Chinese consumers exclusively purchase electric vehicles in the future, the low profit margin and declining consumer purchasing power limit the potential for profit growth for Chinese automakers. Naturally, President Xi's generous subsidies for electric vehicles are not solely aimed at stimulating domestic competition. They are also intended to encourage sales to international markets. At present, China's electric vehicle exports encounter substantial obstacles, mainly due to restrictive policies. Europe, Canada, and the United States have imposed significant tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles, with the US and Canada implementing a 100% tariff, including on Teslas manufactured in China. Recently, the European Union introduced a new tariff regulations that can reach as high as 35% on Chinese EVs, which significantly reduces the potential for future profitability. First, the 100% tariff imposed by the US effectively shuts Chinese electric vehicles out of the world's second-largest automotive market. For Chinese manufacturers, the only feasible way to access the lucrative US market is to set up production facilities in Mexico to bypass these sanctions. However, if Trump were to regain power, this option could be entirely eliminated, resulting in China losing its presence in the North American market altogether. The European Union, on the other hand, still has some opportunities. Its ability to impose sanctions on China is relatively limited, as completely phasing out Chinese electric vehicles would be difficult, primarily due to the EU's strong focus on environmental sustainability. The EU has implemented a plan known as the Fit for 55, which aims for comprehensive environmental reforms. This initiative targets a reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by at least 55% from the 1990 levels by 2030 and aims for carbon neutrality by 2050. To achieve these goals, a substantial decrease in gasoline vehicle sales is essential. According to the plan, by 2030, electric vehicle sales must make up 60% of all new car sales in the EU, with the goal of transitioning entirely to electric vehicles by 2035. This plan is undeniably more ambitious than those in North America. However, the EU currently lacks the necessary production capacity for electric vehicles, making it challenging to fulfill its environmental objectives without importing Chinese EVs. Thus, the EU faces a dilemma. It can either negotiate a comprehensive deal with China or forsake its efforts to enhance its carbon neutrality agenda. This scenario opens up a significant opportunity for Chinese electric vehicles to penetrate the European market. Chinese people are especially sensitive to tariffs imposed by the EU and North America, as these regions are regarded by the Chinese Communist Party as adversarial forces representing Western interests. Whenever the West introduces new tariffs, the Chinese government often amplifies these actions, portraying them as imperialistic attempts to undermine China. However, behind the scenes, tariff barriers against Chinese electric vehicles are quietly being erected. Let's examine BYD's sales performance. So far, the company's main export targets haven't been the US or Europe, but rather developing countries like Brazil. However, Brazil has recently started increasing tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles due to concerns about dumping. This year, Brazil raised its electric vehicle tariffs twice in January and July, and plans to increase them to 35% by July 2026, matching the current rates in the EU. The effect of these tariffs has been swift. In May, Chinese electric vehicle exports to Brazil totaled 45,000 units, but by July, the number had dropped dramatically to just 1,200. Furthermore, Russia, another key car exporting ally of China, has recently started to target Chinese electric vehicles. Earlier this year, Russia declared that effective April 1st, all vehicles manufactured in the Eurasian Economic Union entering Russia would incur additional tariffs, value-added taxes, and excess taxes. In addition, electric and hybrid vehicles must go through customs clearance in Russia and acquire the necessary safety certification for imported vehicles. This regulation has a limited impact on some gasoline vehicle brands such as HAVO that have already established sales channels in Russia. However, it will substantially increase the costs for Chinese electric vehicles entering the Russian market. According to calculations by reporters from Auto Society, once the new regulations are implemented, customs clearance for a Geely KX1 in Russia will incur an additional cost of at least 2 million rubles, about 150,000 yuan. Consequently, the final price of a KX1 in Russia will effectively double compared to its price in China. Moreover, as Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Armenia operates under a common customs regime, this additional fee will be enforced across all these countries. Furthermore, Mexico, which ranks as China's second largest automotive export market, is approaching the expiration of its zero tariff policy on Chinese electric vehicles. However, the Mexican government has not yet reached a final decision on whether to impose additional tariffs, seemingly awaiting the results of the upcoming US elections. If Mexico chooses to implement tariffs, China would lose its second largest overseas automotive market. As it stands, the outlook for China's top three automotive export markets is becoming increasingly precarious. While the potential market for Chinese electric vehicles appears bleak, these companies have nonetheless benefited from certain monopolistic advantages. The affordability of Chinese electric vehicles cannot be solely credited to government subsidies. The rise in production has created economies of scale, especially for industry leaders like BYD. Although BYD does receive some subsidies and can sell its vehicles at lower prices due to slim profit margins, it's important to recognize that its manufacturing costs are also relatively low. However, the economies of scale have been negatively affected by certain factors guided by the Communist Party, resulting in overcapacity. Currently, the utilization rate of electric vehicle production in China is under 50%, significantly lower than the generally accepted optimal range of 76 to 80%. This low utilization rate is a key reason why Chinese automakers experience relatively low profit margins. Building factories incur significant costs, and with so many facilities lying idle, maintaining high profit margins becomes challenging. Additionally, the expected advantages of technological monopolies have not yet materialized for Chinese EV manufacturers. At the present, two prominent technological narratives surround electric vehicles: solid-state battery technology and autonomous driving technology. Solid-state battery advancements are still largely theoretical, while it's widely accepted that Tesla currently leads the way in autonomous driving, a sentiment that few would contest. Finally, I'd like to express my perspective on the Chinese electric vehicle industry. Earlier, I mentioned that as long as consumers are unconcerned about the Communist Party's surveillance, they should feel free to buy Chinese electric cars. Some might criticize me for still having any hopes for these vehicles. We shouldn't reject the Chinese electric vehicle industry just because the Communist Party backs it, which would be a counterproductive form of opposition. While I don't agree with the strategies of China's electric vehicle sector, I don't want to see it fail. Technological progress and industrial upgrades are crucial for China to become a developed nation and for improving the quality of life for its people. Viewing China's electric vehicle industry through this lens can lead us to fall into the Communist Party's narrative trap, where all credit for the industry's achievements is given to the party, neglecting the contributions of the populace. When we reflect on how the electric vehicle sector has developed to its current state, we see that its scalability is primarily due to China's significant population base. Additionally, the low cost of labor arises from the determination and industriousness of Chinese people. Government support seems to be the only contribution the Communist Party can make to the development of electric vehicle in China. However, it's unclear whether the benefits of this support outweighed its negative consequences. This assistance has also resulted in challenges like excessively low profit margin due to overcapacity. The challenges facing the export of Chinese electric vehicle can be entirely traced back to the Communist Party. While one might argue that the Western tariffs are part of an ongoing anti-China agenda, the recent increases in tariffs from countries like Russia and Brazil should compel Xi Jinping to seriously reassess his diplomatic approach. Even if the West harbors ill intentions, it is fundamentally the role of any government to manage foreign relations effectively and work toward reducing tariffs. Unfortunately, it seems Xi has not succeeded in this area. We should not link Chinese electric vehicles solely to the Communist Party, nor let our opposition to the party cloud our views on all Chinese businesses. Thank you so much for watching. If you find this video helpful, please like it, drop a comment below, and hit the subscribe button right here. It really helps YouTube suggest my video to others. I'll be back with more content soon. Until then, stay well.